thank you everybody for joining today's session. My name's Rhys. I'm one of the chairs here at the UKBIMA Alliance Wales. And today's event, titled Emerging Technology and Recovering from COVID, is an event that we decided to bring to you by collaborating through the team here in Wales and in the Southwest. So with the current circumstances, we wanted to keep up the momentum and thought it would be a good idea to share what we've learned across both regions in a collaborative event. So for those of you who don't know me, I work at Revisto. I've been part of the BIM Alliance now for a number of years, and we'll go through some general introductions now throughout this session. So just a few things to check that you can hear what I'm saying. In the Zoom, which I know everyone is really familiar with now, there's a chat log. So what will be good for me is if you could put in the chat log just some text, your name, the company you're part of, or where you're based, just to confirm that you can actually hear me and see the screen, then we know we're off to a good start. So let's just check that's coming through. And let's see if Mr. Joss has joined. So we'll promote to a panelist. Perfect. And we can start to see the chat logs coming through. So yes, loud and clear, over the bridge. Great stuff. Perfect. Okay, so got a really exciting agenda here for you today. So I'll run through some introductions, recap, and then we'll get into the more exciting stuff. So we've got a guest speaker today, Tim Lockett, who's joined us from WHITEHEAD to talk about socially distant collaboration. Mike Ford then is going to move into his talk, which is COVID, a digital catalyst, and then we'll round everything up with a roundtable discussion, Q&A, questions to everybody on the call and the panelists today with Andrew Joss from Rio Architects. So that will include everyone on the panel today and Nigel Davis. So just a few things I'd like to mention. So firstly, this session will be recorded and will be available on the UKBIMA Alliance YouTube channel shortly after the event. And I'll show you an example of the previous one also. If anyone is using any social media platforms, then we'd love you to share what we're doing, the message we're sharing. So using the hashtag there, emerging tech, would be great. You can see both Twitter handles there for Wales and the Southwest. And one of the team will be live tweeting today using that hashtag. So please do use it, retweet, share, that's greatly appreciated. We've already checked the questions are working, so we'll take questions after each presentation. So if you do have them, put them into the chat log, and myself or one of my colleagues on the call here will respond to you in the chat log, or we'll ask the speakers directly. And yeah, again, thanks for coming into today's session. Really appreciate you all taking the time up with your busy schedules to be here. So just to recap on where we were back in January, our BIM Digital Standards event was a great success. We had, I think it was around 65, 70 people. I think it was actually more than that, down in Newport in the Celtic Manor. So you can see there are a number of the presentations. We had great momentum, and myself and the team are keen to keep this going now throughout of the year, albeit remotely as we are today. And in the next coming months, we'll see if the next event will be similar to today's, or if we're able to get together. So here's some of the guys that I work in the Wales team who are part of today's call. And when we get into the panel later on, then Nigel can introduce the wider team. But Nigel Davis, Mike Ford, and Tom Gould, who unfortunately can't be with us today. He's in another meeting. Lots on, so you can check out the UKBIMA Alliance website for where we're at and the upcoming events for this year. For Wales specifically, where I spend most of my time, we still have a number of planned events that we will be running this year. And on the Alliance website, you can get in contact with your local region should you want to participate. That's a key word, right? Is the Alliance is you. We would love to hear what it is you're doing in your organizations. So if you would like to share your story, then please do get in touch with any of the team, and we'd love to have you part of that this year or into next year. So please do just get in touch. So that's pretty much from myself. I'm keen to move straight into today's session. So let's welcome Tim Lockett to the floor. He was somebody that got in touch following the last event, and I've known Tim for a while. So Tim is going to share his story today. Tim, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And unmuted again, so it's working. Perfect. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and let's have a look if you share.
Yeah,
your screen,
sharing my screen now, hopefully.
Yes, we're in. So I'll mute myself, Tim, and over to you.
All right. Hopefully you can all see that, yeah? Good.
Yep, loud and clear.
Lovely stuff. Right, okay. So, yeah, thank you for the introduction. My name is Tim Lockett, and I am the design manager.
Tim, sorry to interrupt. I think your display settings, we can see your next slide as well. So I don't know whether you can... You're spoiling the excitement now. Yeah, I had the same...
Well, this is an excellent start, isn't it?
That's all good. If you click on the slideshow, I think you can switch the present display settings at the top.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. That's the one.
Hey.
There we go.
Right.
Perfect.
So down to a talk on emerging technologies and how to use this sort of thing. Yeah, great. Right, lovely. Back to it. So I'm Tim Lockett. I am the design manager at Whitehead Building Services. Asked to talk by Reese on this subject, and when pressed for a title, socially distant collaboration was about the wittiest thing I could come up with. So that's what happens when engineers try and sort of be funny, isn't it? To start off then, I'll just give you a bit of background on who Whitehead Building Services are, for those that don't know of us. We are mechanical and electrical building services contractor. We've been going for just over 40 years. We have a head office in Newport in South Wales. We have other office locations in Bristol, in Exeter, and in Redruth in Cornwall, so very much a Wales and Southwest based business. We work in all sectors really, a lot of public sector work at the moment, and for the last few years, schools, hospitals, higher education type stuff, but also quite a lot of commercial stuff, and a lot of residential student stuff recently in the last few years as well. Rail, and also we have our own maintenance department in-house. To give you an idea of the size of the business, turnover sort of around the £40 million mark, and we directly employ about 300 people. I myself work from the South Wales office, the head office in Newport. So to give you just again a bit of a background, a bit of an idea of what we're doing at the moment, here's just a selection of projects that I'm working on personally from here. Cardiff University Innovation Centre, that's a university research building. There's teaching spaces in there, laboratories, that sort of stuff. That's around the £50 million mark for Cardiff Uni with Boyd Construction. Over on the left, that is Ysgol Bro Megannog. That is the Welsh school in Barry. So that's obviously for the Vale of Glamorgan, working with ISG on that secondary school, part new build, part refurb, and around sort of £18.5 million in project value total. And that bottom one there, finally, Cefn Syson School for Neathport Talbot Council with Morgan Sindall. And that is, again, it's a new build secondary school, the project value around £29 million. So that's just sort of an idea of the kind of things that I'm getting involved in. So on to design and BIM then. As a business, typically up to sort of what we would have called stage 4A, the feasible generic model kind of stage, we would either receive that as part of the project brief. So perhaps the main contractor has already had that commissioned, and we're receiving that to tender from. Other times we start a project after stage 3, and we would outsource that work to the stage 4A work to an MEP consultant in the region. So that BIM wise, that work is sort of element is done for us, and then we have our own in-house team that we would then take the coordinated models from sort of stage 4B sort of through to completion, really, record drawings, as-built models. That element of it would be done in-house. We've got 6 permanent staff, including myself, in the design team. Our BIM team are predominantly office-based, but we do often move people to site during the stage 5, during construction. Couple of reasons for that, really. I mean, we find that it helps the sort of development of our BIM technicians, in that they can kind of go out and sort of touch stuff and see stuff, and it gives you a better idea of really how to model it. But also it's extremely useful for the site guys to then have someone they can, you know, rely on and come and ask questions to, where stuff should go, etc. on site there. As I said before, I'm the design manager, so I manage all elements of this team. My background, I worked for an M&E consultant for 12 years. So I'm a mechanical engineer. So I'm not, I joined Whiteheads a couple of years ago. I'm not a BIM guy as such, but obviously it's become a very important part of my role at Whiteheads. So on to what we've actually been asked to talk about. The kind of headline for this whole session, I think, was recovering from COVID. I'm not sure I'm really there yet, to be honest. So I'm twisting it a bit and calling it coping with COVID, and just trying to give you a flavour of the kind of things we're doing, the kind of emerging technologies that we're using at Whiteheads in order to sort of manage and cope with the lockdown situation. That's my desk in the office on the left, by the way. I'm not at it because I'm sat in my spare room here. First of all, top tips: get yourself a massive telly. My kids are quite annoyed because I've nicked their 32-inch telly off the wall, but it's very useful for marking up drawings and flying around models. So how are we coping with the lockdown? I mean, this one might seem a little bit obvious, but we're using video conferencing. We're doing it now. 6 months ago, I probably couldn't have been able to tell you what Zoom was. Although we've been using Microsoft Teams before that time, certainly not been using it half as much as we have been in the last few months. I'm sure that's the same for a lot of people listening. To be able to bring a model up on screen, either on Teams or with something like TeamViewer, and sort of fly through it, pick up drawings, you know, show people what you're doing, has really been invaluable for us on that. As a bit of an example, actually, again, not necessarily BIM related, but certainly a sort of using these video conferencing tools in a collaborative sense. We were approached by Morgan Sindel, actually, very early in the lockdown process, who in turn been approached by Pembrokeshire County Council. The image on the left there is the indoor play centre at the Bluestone Holiday Resort near Tenby, and the images on the right there are 3 weeks later, and it's become a hospital to cope with the COVID outbreak. Again, it's just really to kind of illustrate the power of all of the design work was done by PCC with input from Whiteheads, all done over video conferencing in a very short space of time. All the liaison between, you know, myself in the design and the site guys done over video conferencing, and, you know, from that to that in 3 weeks is quite an achievement. So on to more sort of technologies again. One of the things that we've been using extensively is the Autodesk BIM 360. If you don't know what that is, it does a lot of things, to be honest. You can use it in a sort of design collaboration sense. You know, you can do markups and that kind of thing to share between the teams, and you can use it for document management in a sort of similar way, not quite as powerful as something like 4Projects or Aconex or those sorts of things. But the primary use we've had out of it in the last few months is the Revit cloud work sharing part of it. Essentially, instead of loading our models onto a server in the office, all Revit models are hosted in Autodesk Cloud, and to put it quite simply, instead of, when you click sync, instead of being 20 minutes, that's sort of 2 minutes worth of syncing, and it's really been invaluable for us. And that's obviously been retained by us. Even now we're sort of getting back to the offices and getting back to our site work. We're keeping that. We've got guys on site that are still using it, and it really has been a fantastic tool for us. The other tool we've been using is Revisto. You might not be surprised to hear, and the sort of things that we're doing with that. It's quite a simple and easy to use tool for visualization. I think, as I said sort of earlier in the presentation, we've got sort of 300 staff, of which we've got 5 or 6 of us that are trained to use Revit, and the other thing with the sort of Autodesk license has become quite expensive for a sort of a relatively small company where we haven't got the economies of scale for that, and obviously you have to train the guys too. So Revisto has been a sort of a much simpler way of being able to sort of train people relatively quickly in how to kind of fly around a BIM model, have a look at stuff, measure stuff, and really see what's going on. We use it for coordination. That sort of top image there with the kind of red splurge on it, that is actually the Navisworks clash detective that's been imported into Revisto. That's actually from a live project. I don't know if anyone has used the Navisworks clash detective, but I myself don't find it particularly user friendly. But once it's kind of exported into something like a bit more like Revisto, we do find it a lot easier to visualize what's going on and find and isolate and fix those clashes. So that sort of coordination, but general flying around a model, looking at stuff. There's plant rooms on the left there, ceiling voids in the middle. Over on the right, that is a classroom at Ysgol Morgannwg, and again, very easy to kind of have a little look around, and sort of make sure all the sockets, the dado, and those kind of things are in the right place. Probably the most sort of exciting or part of it for me as the design manager. It's a bit sad when the most exciting thing for you is QA, but hey, that's me, that's my life. But tools like Revisto are very useful in the QA process. We can do things. So, the image on the left there is a sort of an issue that I've marked up and said, please move those pipes over to the right a bit. And the image on the right is showing that the BIM technician there has indeed moved those pipes over to the right a bit. Doesn't sound that exciting, but in the past you'd have had site managers scribbling things on paper, dropping it on the BIM technician's desk. Coffee gets spilt on it, the bit of paper gets lost, and you can't track those things. Whereas with a tool like this, you can sort of set up an issue, leave it open. BIM guy can change that to solved, and then as a design manager or project manager, you can then go in and sort of check that it's done in exactly the way you want it to be done and close that issue off, and the issue sort of stays there, and it can be kind of looked at, and exactly who's done what and when. More useful in these kind of times now where we're all a bit sort of distant from each other, but the communication element of it. What we've actually done at Whiteheads is bought a few iPads and sent them out to each of our sites, so our site managers can kind of wander around the site with a BIM tool in their hands. They can stop in a room, have a look around in BIM, have a look around in real life, and it's a two-way communication thing really for us. So for instance, the image on the left there, it's very easy to kind of mark up an issue such as that one and say this louver needs to move up a bit, and that can go back to our BIM team, and we can make sure then that the BIM model is correct and will coordinate. And then the other way, of course, is once the BIM model is correct and coordinated, it could be communicated out to site very easily. The image on the right shows how easy it is just to take a measurement. So, guys on site can measure where an item is and make sure it's put in the correct place. And it's another way of just sort of ensuring quality is what we're doing. Something that we've, to be honest, we started this before the lockdown, but more and more has sort of come to the fore really is off-site manufacture. The image in the middle is, well, it's a plant room, but it's got no plant in it on that photo. I promise you there's a lot more plant in it right now because it's already been lifted up to the roof of the Cardiff University building. And the other images are sort of showing crane lifts of that event when it all got lifted to the roof. Again, towards the sort of start of the lockdown, we had problems on site. One of our projects down from our Exeter office, actually, quite simple really. We couldn't finish the plant room off because a pump is a 2-man lift and it's not larger than 2 meters, so people can't be more than 2 meters apart while they lift it. So we very quickly sort of altered the design on that, and got items of plant sort of put onto skids. It could be wheeled in on a pallet truck by just one person and kind of maintain that distance. So really, say it's not something that's particularly new to us, but we have been using it a lot more extensively now and probably will do into the future. And that is around about it, actually. Those are the sort of things that we've been doing, and yeah, thanks for listening. I'll let Reese cut back in now if you like.
That's great. Thank you very much, Tim, for sharing that. Let me take back control here. So whilst we've got you online just for a few minutes, Tim, I know you need to dash. So again, thank you for joining us today. Are there any questions from anybody that we can ask Tim right now? So we'll give it a second whilst we allow you, Mike, to share your screen. We'll be sharing the slides afterwards also, and I'm sure Tim would be more than happy to take any questions directly if there are any. Tim, let me know if I'm speaking out of term here, but if you do have any questions, you can email me those directly and I can forward those on to Tim.
Yeah, sure.
Or you can take those directly. So nothing coming through just yet, Tim. So thank you very much. And yeah, I know you've got to dash off, so we'll catch up afterwards. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Right.
Speak to you soon. Perfect. So over to Mike Ford now then. COVID, a digital catalyst. Mike, can you hear us?
Yes. Have I unmuted successfully?
You have indeed. We can
Excellent
hear you loud and
news.
clear.
And you can see my slides.
Yes, we can. So
Excellent news. Right.
yeah, good start.
Okay, so my presentation, COVID, is it a digital catalyst? How has the pandemic redefined the digital landscape at UWI, which is where I'm from? So my name is Mike Ford. I'm the digital BIM manager at the University of the West of England. I work in the estates department there. So you see the image up on screen now, that message we've all been getting, stay at home. So how has that message forced us to change, is the question. Right, if I can manage to migrate to my next slide. So the quote there from Plato, necessity is the mother of invention, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. And I mean, we've seen that in the past in war times. Lots of innovation happens when there's great need to do so. So a little bit of duplication. You can tell that that we didn't share slides before this, because I also wanted to comment on how virtual meetings have become commonplace. And I sort of just like to reflect on, you know, this is something we all thought we couldn't do. Like before COVID, we weren't having meetings digitally. We were all cramming into meeting rooms. We were all traveling on lots of meetings and things like that. So this has been quite a resounding change, I think, in the way that we work, and perhaps something we want to learn from and take forwards. Next question. Cutting off access to the office has obviously also cut our access to printing. And how many of us are actually missing physical printed media? I for one, I'm not missing it at all. So it raises questions. Do we need to continue mass printing material? Do we need to have printers taking up space in offices and things like that? So the next one is, I don't think we need to move around so much. I don't think anyone's missing those commutes to London and places like that for meetings. But by not traveling around, we've been able to win back time that we can refocus into more useful endeavors. And we've also been reducing pollution in the process, which is very important right now. So moving on to more university specific, exams have changed. So our Vice Chancellor said that we won't be returning to this Victorian style of examinations. We don't need to have, as a university anymore, these massive open spaces that can handle like a busy exam period. So I think that's another positive from COVID. And that's allowing us to repurpose that building, so that the building that we used to hold our exams in, the Exhibition and Conference Centre on our Frenchay campus, opened its doors on the 27th of April as NHS Nightingale Hospital. It's got 300 beds in it, and that was all turned around in about 3 weeks, I believe. So really, really impressive from a construction point of view that such a rapid turnaround could be achieved. And from here on, I suppose learning is also going to be different. So we can't have the level of occupation within the buildings that we used to have with social distancing in place. So we're adopting a blended learning approach. So part of that will be in the classroom and part of that will be online. And again, I think it's something the Vice Chancellor is quite keen that we keep this mentality once the COVID issue is removed, because there are benefits to both sides. The e-learning can be a lot more flexible and it offers students something else, but as a university, we're never going to be pure e-learning for this reason, really. We've got lots of different specialist spaces, so our buildings are still going to have that vital role to play, because there are things like specialist lab spaces, medical spaces, engineering, robotics, filming, photography, all of those sorts of things that are really, really difficult to recreate digitally. So this blended approach is probably where we're going to be going in the future. So we have identified that we still need these buildings. So how are we going to reopen sort of September, October for students to start returning in a safe and orderly manner? So it's probably not the most interesting topic that you've ever heard of, but signage and gel stations are sort of, consuming my life at the moment. It's most of my days walking buildings in planning where signage is going. So I just wanted to sort of use this session as a little bit of a look on how we've really improved the way that we're deciding where signage is going, making sure all the different stakeholders are engaged in the process, the health and safety, the people that coordinate the buildings, the different faculties, and the estates department. So let's look at where we started off. So one of my colleagues started the ball rolling, and he opted for a more physical process. So he was walking the buildings, he had his clipboard, he was taking notes on where the signage is going and things like that, what bits of the building are closed, what's opened. And then he went and produced some plans to show and communicate this to the various groups, including our printing and stationery department who are producing the signage. That process took about a week for one building. Now our issue is we've got an awful lot of buildings to cover. So there's about 300,000 meters squared of space spread across the various campuses. There's a little snapshot from Google Maps of each of those. So that presents a real problem. So we want to open in October of this year, not next year. So we need to speed things up. So this is where we tried a more technology-enabled process. So we're still walking the buildings, but we're using some software that we already have access to. And the last presentation sort of touched on Revisto a bit. You'll obviously know Reese. I'm not here to sell Revisto. I'm here to show the way that we've used technology that's construction focused to do something that isn't construction, which I think is quite interesting. So we've got the digital campus, we've got all of our plans and models, etc., on this platform. So that sort of enabled us to use the stamps within the software, which are probably, they weren't designed with the intent of COVID-19 in mind. They were designed for things like snagging and defects and recording those sorts of things on site. So we've sort of flipped that to be used for this signage process. So what we're doing now is we're walking around the site with the iPad, and we're marking on where we need different types of signs as we're doing it. And what that has enabled us to do is, instead of having this drawing process at the end of the site walk around, now we can just, within 7 minutes, I timed it because I'm sad like that, it takes 7 minutes to produce the plans and the reports and things off the back of that, whereas before that was taking a lot of time. So the overall technology-enabled process is now taking about half a day. And it comes with a few added benefits, because this will also produce an Excel version of the report. And the column that I've highlighted there with green circle is showing all the different types of signs that survey had picked up. And then the image down in the bottom right corner there is our printing and stationery department's order form. And I've just used a simple countif formula in Excel to show how many of each different type of sign we picked up during that survey. And what that's doing really is it's given us that consistency. So if we were physically counting up how many of each type, we'd likely make a mistake. And it's also, again, reducing the amount of time taking for producing this report. So it's been really positive. That was supposed to play a video. Oh, that's disappointing.
Nothing yet, Mike. I don't know whether it's worth
Yeah,
minimizing that slide and try it that way. If we could get it working. And sometimes if you come out of presentation mode and then click play, I know we're looking at the slides, but the video is worthwhile to watch if we can get it working.
Drag that over to that side.
There we go.
So
technology
there you go.
when it
So
works,
I'm just sort of showing this to sort of show the scale of the estate again, and the fact that we need even more speed to get around this number of buildings. They're looking at opening buildings for staff to return in the next couple of weeks. So we've got a very, very tight program. So I just reset this back to how I had it. Thanks for that tip, Reese.
It's all right.
So yeah, that's then giving us that idea of scale. So moving on to the next iteration of this is the wholly digital process. So combining some of the things that we've seen earlier. So what if all of the digital benefits of the 3D models, what will we start using all of this? So we've already seen the advances of moving away from the clipboard and paper. And then this step removes the time traveling to site and the time for multiple people to travel to site as well. And it also removes the potential for us to spread COVID-19 amongst ourselves, because we're using this fully digitized process over the Microsoft Teams. So what we're doing, so put simply, I'm driving the process and I'm walking around the buildings virtually with a team of people connected via the Microsoft Teams. And we're discussing where the best places for signage and gel stations are as we walk around, just using that Revisto. So this is almost like the next, the next step on. And I think it also opens doors to us thinking about how we, discuss design and things going forward as well. So what we take away from this after COVID-19. It does have some disadvantages. Doing the physical site walkarounds, we were able to include photographs within the report, which obviously we can't do virtually. But overall, as long as you've got someone on that call that really knows that building quite well, this has really enabled that ramping up of speed that we needed. So this has reduced the time taken to do a building to about 1 hour. So we've gone from 1 week to half a day to 1 hour, which I think is really good. So in conclusion, working digitally, what are we seeing? An increase in the use of Microsoft Teams and things like Zoom, a decrease in physical meetings, which I think is great. How many of us have walked into a meeting room halfway through and, you know, the sort of stale air and everything like that? It's those sort of environments are probably breeding grounds for viruses and things. So very glad to not be in that situation. We're seeing the reduction in printing, which of course equals to saving of paper, saving of trees and things like that. So again, really positive environmentally, as well as the reduction in travel, leading to also the reduction in CO2. And the reduction in physical exams, I'm sure, is leading to much happier students. So that's me. Does anyone have any questions?
That's great. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, we'll open the floor to questions. So please do ask away. And the rest of the panelists, if you have any questions for Mike, then feel free to turn on your mics. Don't be shy and ask away. I've got one, Mike. Really interesting overview there of how you've sort of been thinking outside of the box and innovative in your approach of using some of the tools you mentioned and just some of the things you're doing. So that's all great and positive. I mean, what do you miss from the sort of the old normal way of working? I'm just curious.
What do I miss? I do miss sort of seeing colleagues and the sort of, you know, physical aspects of being on site, I suppose. It's all felt a bit remote, but I think once you've had time to adapt to it, I think if you'd have asked me in week 1 if I'd like to go back to the office full time, I'd probably have said yes. Now I think that sort of blended approach suits me better, part at home and then some days in the office would be the best.
Absolutely, and like yourself, I've sort of been geared up to work from home for a number of years, but do enjoy getting out and about and having that sort of face-to-face, which has happened recently. The last couple of weeks, being able to get out on the site, so that was, even though it was a completely different experience, still out and about. And I think the more people I speak to, things tend to be picking up, albeit slowly. So yeah, one question here, or more of a comment. I agree with all of the benefits working remotely. However, what about mental health impacts, especially for students, people that need that face-to-face interaction? How are you addressing that here? I don't know if you've been involved with that, Mike, but has that been raised as a potential concern for students or anyone?
It isn't my area, but since the lockdown, the Vice Chancellor has been doing sort of weekly Q&A sessions, and I've listened to quite a few of those, and the question of, you know, how do you manage the mental health of students and things has come up. Mm-hmm. And I think the approach is that they're going to get some of that on-site time. They're also going to have one-to-one time with their lecturers, albeit that's probably going to be done over something like Teams or Zoom. Mm-hmm. I think all of our student accommodation has been filled for next year already, so it looks like lots of people do want to come back. Yeah. And the university's taken the approach to put people into sort of like bubbles. So sort of students joining that are all on the same course will be put into the same flats, if you like, so that they're within bubbles.
Perfect. And I suppose one more thing, from what you've learned over the last couple of months, is there, as and when we get back to the new normal, and hopefully that's somewhere close to where we were previously, is there one thing that you will absolutely take now that's just become a standard process or protocol for, you know, if things get back to completely the way they were previously?
I think this COVID activity has sort of really shown my colleagues and others in the department the value of the digital models of the BIM workflow and what it's enabled us to be able to do and adapt very quickly to changing circumstances. So I'm hoping to see their use and the value we get out of them increasing.
I have a question for Mike.
I was just going to ask, actually, Andrew, it's over to you now. So it sounds like this discussion is sort of widened itself up to a more of a sort of a roundtable debate discussion. So ask away, Andrew, and now's the time to extend the questions and comments out to today's audience. So if you wanted to share your screen, or if you've got any slides, questions you wanted to share or not, or
no, I'll just ask the questions. So I just got one for Mike to start with. Did you have as your project, the Nightingale project, took over one of your buildings? Did you have a requirement, or was there a requirement for BIM when that was converted? And how will you capture the changes after the fact?
That's a really good question, actually, Andrew, and it's one I'm not entirely sure of the answer of, to be honest. So when the Nightingale project began, it was my colleague Josh was doing a lot of the sort of legwork in getting information together ready for the project. The project was taken over by an outsourced team. I think that BDP architects did some work, and I think some of the military's project managers sort of overtook the running of that project. So I think it handed over to a Nightingale team, and I'm not sure if it was modelled or not. But I think the arrangement we have, I think we let the building to them for like £1 or something like that, under the agreement that it gets put back to what the university requires of it, at the end of it. So I think there's another project to come to put its use, not necessarily back to how it was, but into something more useful for us going forwards.
So you might have to laser scan or something to capture the state it's in after, maybe to update your records, really, I guess.
Yeah, potentially. But I mean, I've not been over there. The whole site's hoarded off, and it's got people standing on all the entrance points, keeping it secure. So, but I think inside it's mostly been sort of standalone partitioning and things like that they've put in, because it was just a wide open expanse beforehand.
Okay.
I'm not sure that there's been masses of physical changes. I could be wrong.
So I think that's the end of my question. Is there any more questions? Do you know, Reese?
Just looking now. Well,
Mike?
I'm curious to whether it would help to have a virtual walk around, which also used other digital capture tools. The question makes sense to you, Mike? I'm guessing, is that related to other reality capture tools, or bringing in various data sets into one place to have a virtual walk around? I think that's what the question is.
Sorry, Reese, I've done that thing where I started reading the questions myself, and then you were telling me what the question was, so I didn't pay any attention. Sorry,
I attempted to read it. Yeah, I'm curious as to whether it would help to have a virtual walk around with also used other digital capture tools. I think that means you having virtual walk arounds by collating various different data sets, not just your models. I'm guessing some of the things Andrew talked about. I mean, like photographs. There we go.
Yes, yeah. that would definitely
thank you, Simon.
Be helpful. So what we do have,
i.e. Matterport. Yep. So reality capture, Matterport, drone survey, photograph, 360 images, and the likes.
I think one of the things we're trying to avoid is having too many tools. So trying to use the tools that we've got really well. And one of the things you'll know that Revisto, which is the tool we happen to have, does do is it allows for 3D photographs to be placed within the model. We've bought a 3D camera, but that was just before lockdown happened. So we've got very few sort of photographic records. And
what did you get, right, Mike, just out of curiosity? Was it one of these? Would you recommend Oh, good. They're pretty good, aren't they? I was doing the same thing on site last week with Morgan Sindel. So
so I was saying, like, the disadvantage to the walk-arounds in the way that we had it was the fact that we couldn't capture those photographs. But had we have done the exercise beforehand of capturing the photographs, then obviously we could have filled that little gap.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Mike. It's great to have you present again. I think the last time you presented, especially for the team here in Wales, was a little while ago. So thanks for jumping in and sharing your experience.
Okay,
always enjoy to see what you guys are doing. So Andrew, maybe it would be worthwhile just introducing yourself for those who don't know who you are, and let's open up the questions or the round table. So I think Mike is still here and kind of mute, and so can Nigel. I've turned my camera on, but you gentlemen feel free to do the same as well, unless you're shy or not got dressed yet, or whatever it may be, or I'll switch mine off as well, not to confuse people. So over to you, Andrew.
You have to let me share my camera, Reese.
Do I? All right.
Not allowed, mate.
Make co-host. Let's do that.
There we go.
We can see you're a real person now, look.
There we go.
Hi
everyone. I'm the BIM manager at Rio Architects in Cardiff. So I've been doing BIM and digital construction for quite a while now, around 10 years. So we've got a few questions we want to open up to the panel, and if anyone else wants to share their experience, let us know. The first one would be, does anyone else want to share their BIM experience during the lockdown, and has it changed how you work? Has it improved things? So that's more to the broader audience, I think.
Yeah. Just noticed Lewis and Anthony are in the call as well, so I've just invited those to be able to add comments and talk as well, should they wish to. So
I'll talk from our point of view. So it like most of the panelists said, we're doing a lot more Zoom meetings, team meetings, and it's basically whatever software the company that we're dealing with wants to use. We're screen sharing an awful lot. I find that particularly handy when we have design team meetings. So before you might have just had one person sharing a screen, but you can flip between screens, and because you're in your office as such, you can share the information a lot easier and quicker, and it probably cuts down on the length of time of the design team meeting. To be honest, we're controlling our computers from in the office by a software called LogMeIn. So we've got all the software and stuff like that. It's all on the computer in the office.
So you don't need a powerful machine at home. I know that's been struggle for some people I've spoken to.
So that it acts like a viewer. You're controlling the powerful machine in the office, and people might have a notebook or something, and it wouldn't cope really with a Revit model. So that's helped a lot. Does anyone else want to share their experiences? Lewis?
I'll just throw something. I'll throw something in there if you don't mind, guys. This is Nigel here.
I was just going to ask you, Nigel, to help us out. Come on.
So one of the things I'm hearing a lot of is how people are adapting to virtual meetings and that side of things. I thought it was just worth giving a quick kind of overview. We've been doing that for a long time. Being disparate across the country. Sorry, as I'm sure all you guys are in Revisto as well, Reese. It's not new to have these meetings. It's something that we've been logging in remotely to clients' offices to help them sort problems and meeting. What it's done for us, it's changed the way we approach those meetings. Normally, we would have spent the whole of Monday morning every week, because we'd all be out on site at different offices through the rest of the week, going through the plan of work for the week. We don't do that anymore. What we actually do now is a shorter, more efficient if we can shut half the rest of the company up from saying how many drinks they had last night. Short meeting in the morning instead, to go through the day's work, and it's made the whole thing a lot more productive.
Yeah.
But something that was mentioned earlier about the mental health aspect. I mean, I don't mind saying I'm really lucky where I am. We've got a garden. I've got a separate office. There's so many people out there who've been, people that we work with in London who have been stuck in a bed sit for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
One of our guys, in fact, Simon, he's got a 2-room flat. And what we found has been really beneficial is actually coming online about 10 minutes earlier and just having a social, getting up and just asking each other how we're feeling. Actually asking, get past that whole man thing of not talking about your feelings and stuff. But actually,
how are you, Nigel?
Thanks, Reese.
I've missed you. I haven't seen you for a while.
I'm struggling today, and I think it's a good time to do it. It's even with the kind of luxury I've got of the office here, and it's difficult some mornings. It's actually, wasn't feeling the love this morning, and just to have that little conversation, 5-10 minutes between us all this morning, just saying, how you doing? Actually not doing so great today. And that's meant people have kept in touch more today. I think it's really important to change things and actually get back to the water cooler chats. We don't only have to be meeting virtually for business. I thought I'd throw that in there.
I think it's a good point, Nigel. I mean, it's that fundamental shift, isn't it? In that you're going, I mean, obviously for you, what you just said, as almost an office that's got that virtual sense already in place, it's been quite useful for you then. But I know certainly from my perspective, it's it has been a bit difficult, and that shift has been quite challenging for some people, certainly within our company. But I think one thing that we've always been keen to stress is, is having that work-life balance right.
Yeah.
Certainly, my wife has told me about it. It's almost like it gets to a point where you're getting a bit irritable, and it's like you need to just step away from things a little bit. It's that having the ability to just go out, for a run. But as you said, Simon's got the challenge of he hasn't been able to really.
To be fair, he bought himself a rowing machine. So he's got a rowing machine in the hallway now, and he does that every day.
Yeah. It's difficult. I mean, especially, you think about people in London, just even getting outside, you're still kind of closed in a little bit of a bubble almost. Quite fortunate that I live quite close to the countryside, but for those in the city, you get outside and you're still almost enclosed, and it probably can be quite, what's the word? Probably a bit choking in a way.
Yeah.
So we've got another question that Mike came up with was, does everyone want to go back to normal once normal comes back around? Are we happy with how we're working at the moment, or do you want to go back into the office, or do you want to 50-50 it? What's everyone's thoughts on that?
To get I'm trying to think if I can allow people to switch on their mic sort of joined in, but that may just result in lots of people speaking at once, so issues with mic. So maybe if you can just put those into the chat log.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd say I can't wait to get back on a train. Never thought I'd say that, but maybe not 3 days a week like it used to be.
Yeah.
Once or twice is plenty good enough to change up the scene.
I agree. Yeah, I think I miss the office. I miss my colleagues. Didn't think I'd say that, but I think it would be good to have maybe a 50-50 split or something like that if the office will let us. But yeah, just change the scenery really.
Yeah, that's interesting, Andrew. Obviously, like everyone on this call, speak to a lot of project teams, and one thing that I feel that's interesting is the whole concept of working from home, which I've sort of been joked at for the last 10 years, is you're sat in your shorts playing the PlayStation all day, which of course I only do between 10 and 5, is that you can actually be quite productive. But I think we've got to this stage now where some people that don't have the luxury of additional space, as Nigel said, a space away from the house to go to work and come home, it can be quite difficult, to maintain that work-life balance. So
I found, to be honest, I was a lot more productive initially when I came back to the house and I started working at home. I just as BIM manager, people have loads of Revit questions and software questions, and that kind of, I still get them, but not to the extent as I was. And when I used to walk around the office and I would just get people, oh, can you help me with that? And I think it's prompted people to work it out themselves a little, and it hasn't dropped in quality. It's maintained the quality, but they're using a bit more of their own initiative.
Yeah. I enjoy the flexibility of it, but I find it does mess up my routine. Another comment here. I think one thing that certainly become clear from my own personal perspective, working for a digital collaboration technology provider, is the requirement for tools, technology. So we've been inundated. You saw some of the things Mike and Tim mentioned. So we've seen our clients sort of uptake or increase their use of the technology for various ways and new ways that we weren't aware of. So we've just been really, really busy. So I've been looking forward to come the end of the day to get out of the office for a bit of downtime and step away from the screen as well. So I think a positive spin on that is, and Nigel, we've had this conversation many times, of enabling or encouraging the industry to move forward digitally. I certainly think this has been an eye-opener for a lot of organizations to realize the power of some of the technology that's available to do the stuff the guys have shared today. So
spot on, Reece, spot on. Yeah.
So that was a question I was going to put up to the panel, was has COVID helped advance the progress of digital construction and help spread our message a little bit more? I think it has. And I think Mike is showing that it's helped get people walking around the office when they can't get to the office or things like that. So what's everyone's thoughts on that?
I'll go there. I think it's interesting that what we're probably taking as commonplace now, i.e. virtual collaboration, we've definitely seen an uptake in that, without a doubt. You know, everybody we worked with previously were going to meetings and they were sitting down, talking through things. Now we don't need to. With tools like Revisto, with tools like any other ones out there. Sorry, it's turned into a promotion show for Revisto here, but
it's your fault, Mum. Don't blame me.
It's what we have noticed though is the general uptake of technology has gone on hold for a lot of companies. So while you're talking about virtual collaboration, developing internal systems, you know, Mike's quite lucky with the amount of work they've done over at UWI recently. We're not seeing anywhere near the same amount of work in clients who were looking towards that kind of approach. A lot of it's just gone on hold. A lot of it is just, we've got to deliver exactly what we've got to deliver, forget the bells and whistles, don't care about the benefits it might give us. We've just got to get this done and keep our costs down. So we are seeing the inverse as well. That's the hardest, particularly if we start to see recovery like has been promised and the construction industry is bouncing back. Competition is going to be intense, and it's going to be those people who've taken the time to dedicate to efficiencies in technology that are going to see the benefits quicker. It's really important to remember that, I think.
I know with your role as well, Nigel, I mean, you're involved in a lot more of the regional events. Is that a message that's echoed right across the country from the sessions that you've been involved in? Are we all on a similar page, or are different regions?
Yeah, I think we're saying. I mean, East had one recently. We're seeing the same kind of thing, that the uptake is in the business as usual stuff. You know, the virtual conferencing, the meetings, the collaborative approach. As for developing technology use within companies, yeah, I think that's across the country. You know, it's unfortunate that a lot of this development has gone on hold, because we were riding a wave for a while there.
Yeah.
And I suppose one of the things we've had to change internally now is, you know, we're not going to be at Digital Construction Week this year, or Autodesk University in person this year, or BIM Middle East in Dubai this year. You know, a lot of that stuff's been pushed back. So I know a lot of you, like myself, you know, we're generating new income and revenue for the business. So how do we innovate that approach moving forward? You know, how do we do that? So we've had to look at that internally and what we do if we're not going to be at trade shows where we're meeting clients with prospects. So it's this online approach again, right? So we're hosting series of digital events. I think same with everybody else as well. Our clients are looking for new clients, So how do you go about winning new work? I don't know if that's something, maybe one for you, Andrew. I don't know if that's a thought you've had or discussed internally.
Yeah, we had a few B2Bs lined up, and that kind of, as soon as COVID hit, it kind of died a death.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, that we're not too sure at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're still trying to work that out. We're going to webinars. We're doing this type of event,
Mm-hmm.
but that's where it starts and ends for us at the moment. Perhaps my directors have got other avenues, but it's not apparent, to be honest.
Well, I know we've just gone over the hour mark, but we're happy to extend it further. Are there any closing comments or questions from anybody on today's session, or anything else you wanted to add, Andrew?
Yeah, there was one more. Was are there any services that people are offering that they weren't before as a result of COVID? Like for us, I think we might start looking at space planning with 2-meter bubbles and things like that. And I know we're starting to look at that. But
okay.
What is everyone else doing? Have they offered anything new?
I mean, I haven't done signage placement before now, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, actually.
Signage printing as well.
No, we're not doing the printing.
I can imagine printing companies are doing really well at the moment. That's certainly, I know some industries or companies have really, they say in these situations, some people do really, really well. I keep seeing 2 meters printed and stuck on floors everywhere I go. So
yeah,
I'm sure some printing company somewhere has managed to change the way they work.
I wouldn't be surprised if what's happened over the course of the past 3 or 4 months, it'll kind of accelerate the idea and the process of what we're trying to achieve as an alliance with digital twins as well. There's a far greater importance now on our internal environments, and I think having the ability for us to start to enable that connection between what is virtual and what is real, that's going to make us, I think, more aware, especially with the data we can get out of sensors and things like that, be more aware of our internal environment, I think, and it'll make that more relevant.
Yeah. Reese, someone has raised their hand, but I don't know how we see that. Could you have a look?
Ask me to do anything difficult. I think it's one of the questions that were there already. Can't see it here.
Let me just. No.
Well, on that, Andrew, I think they're conscious of time and everyone's on the call, so let's bring this one to a close then. So an extended thanks for everybody who's taken the time to present today. So thank you, gentlemen, and to Tim as well, who had to dash off a little early to pick up the little ones, and of course to everyone that took the time to register and dial into today's session. Hopefully it's been insightful and useful for you all. We really like to hear your feedback, and if you'd like to be involved in future events, then just get in touch with anybody on this call, and we'd be delighted to have you present at one of our upcoming events, and that's for Wales and the Southwest. So we're not fussy where you're based, just get in touch. So with that, all right, thanks everybody.
Take care. Bye.
And hopefully see you all soon. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.